Crickets. You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in beautiful Northport, Florida. I've got a very, very special guest, and it's kind of been a long time, I think, since we've actually seen each other on the show, let alone in person. I know we've run into each other out in public in person, but gosh, it almost feels like maybe 4 or 5, 6 months since you were on the show.
It's been a while. Yeah, I think it was.
I got Commissioner Debbie McDowell in the house.
Hi, everyone.
So how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. How are you? You look
Good.
a little sunburned.
What's that?
You look a little sunburned.
Oh, just a tad bit. You guys were picking on me before the show, so
I got to continue.
The motorcycle and forgetting to put sunblock on, they don't go together.
No.
So and we've had such beautiful weather.
You've lived in Florida long enough, John. You know you're supposed to put on sunblock, especially.
I know, but I always think, it's a quick run. I'll just do it real quick and I'll come right back, and then I don't come back. Because once you get out there, it's like, all right, never mind. I'm just going to go. And I showed like 6 houses riding the motorcycle the other day. And when the first house that I pulled up, they're like, you rode your motorcycle to show houses? And I'm like, yes. And they thought that was cool as all get out. So cool. We had a good time.
Excellent.
So how's it going in City Hall in Northport, Florida today?
It is wonderful. It's kind of quiet around City Hall today. We've had a lot of big things happening. We were getting ready for the pool to be open more than just on the weekends for the aquatic center. We got some numbers in that just last weekend. We had 1,700 people come to the aquatic center. Wow.
That's a huge count.
That's pretty amazing. So,
and they're doing a really good job getting the information out to the community.
Yeah.
And I know the numbers are getting stronger and stronger every day.
Absolutely. I think the secret is out. More and more people are appreciating it. More and more people are seeing the value of having it here in our city. We had Northport Resident Day last weekend. I think it was last weekend. But unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate, and it was rainy and thundery and lightning. And of course, that shuts down the pool for safety reasons, understandable. But it was a shame that it wasn't as successful as it could have been.
Right.
I like when we have our free Warm Mineral Springs Day and our free aquatic center days for our residents, because they're the ones that paid for it. So they should be able to come in and enjoy it for free one day a year.
Well, John Cook put something out, and I don't know what he means by it, so maybe you can clarify. He said, how can Debbie, something about ABCD, she's running by ABCD. I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means? I have no clue.
I'm not affiliated.
Can you clarify that? Because I'm not quite sure where you're going with that.
Mr. Cook seems to think that I do not have my own brain or my own voice. I have never been part of ABCD. Yes, I have friends that are in ABCD. That doesn't mean I'm involved in ABCD. There's a lot of times that my friends and I don't agree with my votes. I don't know what he means by that. So,
all right. So I got to ask.
Personality conflict at the best.
What is ABCD? Because you got to clarify that for me, because I'm not really sure what that group is.
I don't know what it stands for. I know that they were an organization that started 2015, 2016.
Do we know who runs it?
I don't know who's on the board. I know that Connie Bruni and
so it's actually a real group.
Yeah, it's a real group. They file papers with the state and everything like that. I'm not on their board. I'm not affiliated with them. He seems to think that I am just because we're friends, but that's okay.
Let's see. That's what
there it is.
Accountability, better community direction.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, at least I know what it is. I appreciate that, Stephanie. I'm glad to see that you're listening and adding in. I love it. So besides that, I thought I'd throw that up because it was the first comment out the door.
That's good.
How are, and you know what? There's no better way to answer questions than live and straight to the truth. How about that?
Sounds good.
You've got a lot on your plate. You've got what, couple years left?
2.5. November of 24 is when my term is up.
Right. So 24. Did you see all of the things that you would have to contend with back in the day? Did you see that all transforming into what you are today?
Yeah, I kind of did. I knew what I was getting into when I ran in 2016. I definitely knew what I was getting into when I ran in 20. Like every job that you have, there's good days and there's bad days. You always have a difference of opinion on a vote or a subject. Why did you vote this way? Why didn't you vote that way? Why did you say this? Why didn't you say that? There's always going to be those differences. That's just part of life. It doesn't even have to be your professional life. It's your personal life. It's everything. It's how you navigate those differences, especially in the professional world, that when you navigate those in a positive way, you have teamwork, and that's what builds teamwork. Or you can navigate them in a negative way and you have division. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and I respect that from everybody that I work with and everybody up on my board, and that's what makes the world go round.
We've been friends a long time, and I gotta say we haven't always seen eye to eye on everything, but we still keep it civil about everything we talk about.
Absolutely.
And whether I agree with your vote or disagree with your vote, that's not something I hammer you over either. Because there's actually 5 people voting.
That's right.
And it takes 3 votes to make something happen. Because I see where some of these comments are going, I'll just ask you this.
I don't see the comments, John.
All right. I don't know that I want to put this one up, but hold on. I'll flash it up. And you can, John Cook he's very active out here, and he's got another one.
John Cook doesn't live in Northport.
Oh, okay. Whether he lives in Northport is irrelevant. He is a listener, so it's good. But he's been on the show a couple of times, but I know he's kind of stuck on the ABC thing a little bit. Can you see that question, or do you want me to read it?
I don't even know what he means by that, and I don't think it's relative to anything.
Okay, so I'm gonna take that off.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Because I read it. And
I don't know what that means, and I won't be baited to get into anything like that.
So let's kind of put it out there this way. If you're going to participate on throwing out information and you want me to put it up, make sure you put a question in question form so we can actually have dialogue instead of trying to guess at what the meaning is. Because it to me, when we have the commissioners on, it's a very special time to actually ask questions, interact, and move forward. And if we can keep this on a professional level,
thank you, John.
We actually can move things forward. And we should act like we're kind of like in a business mode right now versus maybe pot shots out there. So let's all take a chill pill and sit back and relax a little bit and maybe learn something today. And ask questions. Feel free. I would love my listeners to ask questions so we can get some good feedback and some good answers from Debbie as she goes through the show. But
thank you, John.
It's very simple. That people out in our community get mixed feelings. Whether you're part of ABC, I don't care. Whether you're part of other groups, I don't care. I'm part of other groups. I have other people I hang around with. And I'll guarantee you, I don't see eye to eye on everyone's political point of view, nor do I expect them to step up and be the same on mine. Where do you kind of draw your line in how you make your determinations on different outcomes, on different votes? Is there a mindset that you have when you approach your voting on how you go through things for the city? Because it's not the same in your lifestyle as it is. We've talked about this in the past. It's different being a commissioner versus being, Debbie McDowell at home.
Correct. I try to use the facts that are presented, whether it's in the backup material or up on the dais, the facts that are presented, questions that I've asked, just general previous answers that kind of come into play. I take the information. I try very, very hard. Sometimes I am way successful. Other times I'm not, where I focus on the issue, not the person that's presenting it, not the politics behind it. I try very hard to stay focused on the issue, because that's ultimately what navigates the city. The issues at hand are what is going to affect the city in the future.
Do you find it, and I have to ask this, and I've kind of been delving into this with others, but when you're sitting on the dais with 5 other votes and you're trying to persuade others, I've sat over at the high school and done it at the high school level, and it's difficult. I mean, you've got, at times sometimes you have to do and say things that not everybody likes, or and they don't always agree, but the end result is trying to get something positive to move forward and to try to build on that. Is that kind of what you try to do now?
John, I think one of the quickest lessons I learned is compromise. I love the word compromise, but I also recognize that every commissioner has their philosophical mindset. I have a philosophical mindset. You have one. They may be in tune, lockstep on this particular issue, and other issues, they may be polar opposite. I can't change polar opposite mindsets any better than somebody can change mine. It'd be like me trying to convince you, John, to be a Michigan State fan.
No chance.
Okay. It is very similar. You are an Ohio State fan. I am an Ohio State fan by marriage.
Right.
Okay. But if I was a Michigan State fan, I could never convince you to change that mindset from Ohio State to Michigan. Okay. It's the same thing up on the dais when you're talking about city water, or you're talking about hiring this, creating this new position or this agenda item. Each one of us have a different way of navigating things, and we have our own philosophies. Those philosophies, in my mind, I try very hard to respect each one of these philosophies of my fellow commissioners. Yeah, there are times I do not agree, and there are times that it shows all over my face, but that's okay. That's what makes this wonderful, because I am able to share my philosophy just in case somebody might be on the fence, and maybe my philosophy might sway them into a different kind of vote. Am I successful every time? Absolutely not.
Man, if we were, we'd roll in the world right now.
But the thing is that I have my philosophy, you have yours, my fellow commissioners have theirs, my city manager, city attorney, city clerk all have theirs. And then you have all the different philosophies of the citizens. At the end,
they all have the same one, don't they?
No, they don't.
No. Listen, I know that this is not an easy topic to even talk about a lot of times, because, whether you talk about it in general or you talk about it pointed, there's somebody out there that takes it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Where we seem to live in this, we accuse the younger generation of instant gratification. We have a lot of adults that do the same thing. And when they have a little bit of power, they think that they want their way, and they're going to throw a temper tantrum or an adult temper tantrum their own way. And that always doesn't work. Sometimes it may, but it doesn't tend to work a lot of times. We've had I think a good run of city commissioners who are trying to at least work together on some really solid issues. and I've not seen, from my standpoint, I've not seen a lot of turmoil when it comes to that. And like I said, it's still 5 votes. There's still got to be 3 to move the meter. I don't know that I agree with everything that's out there, but when you get 3 votes and you're moving information, right? It's a good thing.
I'm reading the comments.
Oh, you're okay. You're stuck back here now. Which one?
Oh, that's all right.
That's all right. Just, here's the thing. The comments. Do you want to say something? I mean, based on what you've read, because
absolutely not. Okay. There's no way I can change anybody's mind that is written in these comments. There is no way. I am not going to comment. I am not going to even give them the satisfaction.
That's
so
okay.
It goes back to they believe their way. I know who I am. I know what I say. And there's no convincing them of anything different. So
William, I don't know why you can't see the comments. It has to do on your end because they're definitely being posted. Chuck, take a look at and
I
click
think he
around.
might have it on private chat instead of comments. That's how I was able to find it. There's 2 little tabs up at the top.
Up at the top,
private chat and comments.
Stephanie can't see him. Stephanie.
Anyways, so what else do you want to talk about, John?
I'm gonna click on my. I don't know if that did anything or not. Well, I took my comments away, so I don't see them now either. How about that? So we did. I went and I did what you said, and I went to the private. And maybe Marie, can you look at that and see why people aren't able to see the comments since you're doing the stream, and see if that's available out there to them. But we had a workshop. I was gone, so I haven't watched the workshop. Don't know anything about the workshop. Can you tell us what happened at the workshop and what happens at a workshop?
So
because it's a good time to educate people.
Workshops are a little bit different than sitting up on the dais during a regular commission meeting. During a regular commission meeting is when we take formal action through a motion. We give city manager formal direction on which way to move the city forward. During a workshop, it's more educational for the commissioners. It's a little bit more informal. We do not give any direction. We may say, hey, we'll give a consensus for city manager to bring back something. It's still got to come back to us. The workshop that we had recently, I think it was last week. Anyways, we talked about the ARPA funds. So we had a second tranche of ARPA funds that are going to be coming through probably June or July. That money, we discussed what is the best way to use those funds. I'm looking for my sheet to show how much money we had. It's like $4.3 million that we got last year. And last year we said, take all of that money and fully construct the city water, city sewer lines to Toledo Blade and I-75. If there's any money left over, because we really didn't know exactly what that price tag looked like, if there's any money left over, take that money and start funding Sumter and I-75 interchanges for the city water, city sewer construction. So then we got a job growth grant from Governor DeSantis through the Florida Job Growth. That was like $1.7 million. And that went towards Toledo Blade and 75 city water, city sewer expansion project. So not only did we have ARPA funds for it, we also got job growth funds for it. Because job growth funds are specific, you can only use it for a specific thing. That freed up some of that ARPA money to be applied elsewhere. So we had to have a conversation. What are we going to do with the ARPA funds? That freed up money. And also, what are we going to do? Because the city manager is getting ready to prepare the budget for the fiscal year 22/23. So we told them, finish up Sumter and Toledo Blade interchange, make that fully funded so that we can do that expansion, open up those interchanges so we can get some growth and some development, some commercial projects going in those interchanges. Then we also talked about, instead of digging twice, lay the conduit to both of those interchanges for broadband. We also talked about doing some improvements to the city's website. That is a much needed thing to get done, to not only clean it up, but to make it more user-friendly, more navigable.
I'm glad you got that word out and not me.
I don't even know if I said it right. Then we talked about Welland Park, having a government substation in Welland Park for permitting, and being able to, instead of coming into City Hall here, being able to do it over at Welland Park, because that is an area that is growing very, very quickly. It's going to have like utility. It's going to be a wide range of government services building. So we told them, hey, take about $2 million and use that from the ARPA funds for that government building. And then we said, whatever's left over, which is about $1.3 million, take that money and use it for the construction of Cranberry and Hillsborough Boulevard. We're putting in a circle, and we're doing that project in conjunction with Charlotte County. So Charlotte County's paying half and we're paying half. We are the lead on the project. So we outlay all the money, they pay us back accordingly to the agreement that we have with them.
Nice.
So we have to have money to be able to do the construction when it gets to that point. So now we've got some money in that bucket.
So it's nice to have that working relationship with Charlotte County.
Yeah. It's starting to blossom, especially now that we have the interchanges being discussed over at Raintree and Yorkshire. Either at Yorkshire or Raintree, or possibly both, is the latest rumor out on the streets, that we might get both. Wow. So we have to work together to let FDOT know jointly which one we feel is going to be best, or we want both. So, right. Because it's so close to the Charlotte County line, and obviously they're both in the city of Northport, but what happens in Northport affects Charlotte County. What happens in Charlotte County affects us. So,
and because there definitely is some growth to be had for Northport in that region, but also for Charlotte County.
Yeah. And it's very important that we show other entities that we're willing to work together and collaboratively to be able to get this done, because I would hate to have any other government entity say, well, Charlotte County and Northport aren't talking about it, so maybe they don't want this done. That's the last thing I would like to have happen.
Oh, no, that would be the wrong word to send out.
Exactly.
If that sector of Northport is actually going to thrive, it does need an interchange, at least one, if not two.
Yep.
And that's a long stretch on 75. That's a really long, I think it's probably one of the longest stretches of road there is on 75 without an exchange, other than maybe down in Lee County from Tucker's Grade.
It's about, I would say, about 9 miles.
Yeah, that's
about the same distance as River Road to Sumter. It's about 9 miles.
Correct. But even that's on 75. That's a long stretch.
Yeah.
Considering when you go through Charlotte County, it's boom, 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 boom. And and even into Lee County, once you get past Tucker's Grade, there's a stretch without any exits. But then when you hit that first one, it's bam, bam, but you can see the growth when you look at these interchanges. What happens with the commercial growth? It just flourishes in those areas, and that's the missing component that we have at two of ours, both Toledo Blade and Sumter. Once we get water and sewer out there, it should open avenues up to more commercial growth.
Absolutely. And I think once we have the city water and city sewer out there, the possibilities are endless as to what is going to be there. It'll open up possibly having a hospital here, because Sarasota Memorial owns property right there at Sumter and 75. It opens the possibility, maybe we'll get a Buc-ee's or what is there's another one.
Like Flying J?
Flying J or something like that there. Yep. Because look at all that gas dollars that are just going south or going north. It's not stopping here. And it's important. It's important to have this in our city. I mean, look at the distance between even an RV stop, where you get your RV fixed. There's one up in Tampa and the next one's way down in Fort Myers. Don't tell me there isn't RVs that break down, between here and there.
That's true. And not that we haven't seen our fair share this year, because we have up and down our roads. That all these things have great possibilities, but the reason we've kind of been held back is the infrastructure, right?
Absolutely, because if for a developer to come in and say, "Hey, we want to put a Buc-ee's in at 75 and Toledo Blade," and if we don't have city water and city sewer there, you're tacking on at least 5 years to their development plan. Time is money. Money is time to these big developers. They want things that are a little bit more shovel ready. And by having the city water, city sewer expanded to these interstates, we'll show them, so do we. We want you to come here. Here's how we're trying to help you get these things in place so that you can look at us and come to the city of Northport and call Northport home, as opposed to saying, well, we don't have city water and city sewer out there, but we still want you to come.
Right.
Well, it's too long of a time for these kind of developers to come in here and do that. Right.
They're really projecting. They're really projecting now for 3 to 5 years out.
Exactly. And then add another 5 years on top of that. They're like, no, we'll go find someplace else.
Right. Something that's shovel ready.
Exactly.
And hence the reason that Charlotte County at their exits get a lot of things at their exits that we don't have at ours, is because they're pretty much shovel ready. There's already public utilities across the board at those locations. And I'm not going to say that we're not worthy, because we're 100% worthy of that with our population and the fact that if there was a travel center, I agree with Chuck. Maybe the wording changed there a little bit from truck stop to travel center. What a much nicer way to put truck stop on a sign than travel center. But it's all wording. You've got to make people feel good. But we've got to kind of bless our truck drivers right now too, as we're saying this, as they're out driving the roads and trying to be safe and trying to get the economy turned back around and get our supplies to us.
At $5.50 a gallon for diesel.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother show. And unfortunately, local doesn't have a lot to do with that.
No, we don't.
But we do when we vote. So. We all need to keep that in mind the next time. So
absolutely,
the things that happen within our control. You're talking about the money that's coming in and how the grants and how the different government assisted programs are really beneficial to the growth. DeSantis is I think you said 1.5,
like $1.7 million. The Florida Job Growth Grant.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear that breakdown, because how you said that was really vital, because that 1.7 gets directed out to Toledo Blade, and that's 1.7 out of that 4 point some million that now gets kind of pushed around a little bit.
Exactly, we can use it for something else. It frees it up.
So it's creative financing. How about that? That we don't have to earmark dollars that Ron DeSantis has actually given us, so we can, and those are designated dollars. So if we put that out there, the odds are that that's going to develop into something bigger and create job growth, which is exactly what it was designed to do.
Yep.
Where do you see Price Boulevard right now?
Great question. That was on my list of things to talk about. So we had our first reading of an ordinance to call a voter referendum So as everybody knows, we're going to be voting on the surtax this November to extend the surtax. That's the 1 cent sales tax increase. That's based on population because we have the largest population outside of Sarasota County as a municipality. We get the lion's share of the surtax. Surtax isn't just us taxpayers paying it. It's all the visitors that stop and shop in Sarasota County. So we are asking the voters, do you want us to use future surtax money to pay for widening Price Boulevard and put out a bond for that widening project, or bonds, plural? So we're going to wait for the voters to say yes or no. If they feel that issuing a bond to pay for Price Boulevard and use future surtax to pay the bond back. So we'll have a second reading. I think the second reading is coming up the 24th. And then it'll go to the voters and the voters will decide.
So we're basically on hold with Price Boulevard until the vote.
Correct.
And if people vote the vote down, there is no Price Boulevard.
I don't know. I can't say
there's Price Avenue, not Price Boulevard.
I don't know if by doing the bond, we will be able to, by doing the bond using future surtax dollars, we will be able to widen Price Boulevard sooner. Okay. If the voters vote it down, if they vote down the bond for Price Boulevard, we can still use surtax dollars, but it might take 10 years to get all of the money to do the widening of Price Boulevard, because we can't go and get a contractor to do construction until we can show that contractor we have all the money. Here's all the money in the Price Boulevard bucket.
So it's either going to cost us today or it's going to cost us down the road, because I don't see anything changing down the road as far as cost center, except maybe going higher. And I listened to, all my life I've heard city after city that I've either lived in or been around, and they always talk about infrastructure and how important it is. And some of the decisions that were made in the past, not here, because I don't want to reflect here in that regard, because I'm not sure we've delayed anything significantly. One would say price probably should have been widened years ago. But everything has its moments. I think back in 2008, we would have been further ahead today if we wouldn't have had the economic downturn that we had back then, because things were moving and shaking a whole different way than they are today in our economy. So I think as a whole, as a community, we have to look at how we're going to construct that road, and get it done sooner so that we have free-flowing traffic. And bond money is, if you're earmarking surplus dollars, should not raise our taxes, correct?
No, because they're using surtax, not surplus.
I'm sorry, I said it wrong, didn't I?
Yeah, you said surplus. It's not that. We're going to be using surtax dollars. Surtax comes in every year. So we need to come up with, for Price Boulevard, let's say $60 million. Okay. And we only get, let's say, I don't know, $2 million a year in surtax. So how long is it going to take us to get to 60 million at $2 million a year? It's going to take us a very, 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 very long time.
And 60 million is going to grow.
Exactly. So if we are able to approve by the voters doing a bond using future surtax, instead we can say we can get a bond. The bond is going to be paid back with surtax money that comes in the future. We pay the bond back, then we can get Price Boulevard done. Probably go out to bid and start the bidding process like January of 23, maybe even December of 22. And then that will speed up the process. We can start construction probably by next year instead of waiting 5 to 10 years to get all of the money to be able to then go through procurement.
Well, and I'm going to ask you this because, when you get that money in, it gets earmarked pretty quickly if you don't have a designated spot to put it, doesn't it?
So the city manager is responsible for producing a budget every year, and we'll start our budget workshops in next month. And he works not only with the city's operating budget, but also the CIP budget. And the commission goes through that and says, no, don't put money here. We want to put the money here. No, don't put money there. We want to put money on this project. So we move it around based on what our needs are today.
Has he already, and I haven't had him on the show. I let him get his feet wet and up and running, so to speak, before I had him on, because I wanted to give him a fair chance to get
Absolutely.
his own take on his feel for our government, because it is different than anywhere else that I'm sure he's been around. Has he been involved now in kind of looking at futuristic plans for the bond and how that would be part of the budget and how that would all work?
I'm sure he is. The city commission sat down with city manager and we went through strategic planning in December of last year. So we did that with a consultant and we came up with a strategic plan. It's a plan. And that's the roadmap that we are going to follow once it comes back. We haven't seen the second round of it yet. Looking forward to seeing that here, I think next month or so. So they're going to be using the strategic plan to help them follow that path for when it comes to budgeting.
And I have to say, we're kind of in a weird spot when it comes to road expansion. Mm-hmm. We kind of have to figure out strategic ways of going about it versus having an endless amount of money streaming in, because we don't have that,
right.
That we can designate for it. And you're right. We have to kind of shoot for that $60 million goal and chop away at it. Well, I don't care who's doing budgets anywhere. Whenever you set a goal of $60 million and you think you're going to put $2 million in a year and you're going to hit it, and nobody's ever going to touch that money, you're out of your mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if we don't designate this as citizens and we don't understand what it's for and why, and the potential growth that it brings, because there's different parts of even on Price Boulevard that will see growth on a commercial level if that road is widened.
Well, I think the only areas that can have commercial growth is at Cranberry and Price, because that's neighborhood commercial. It's not commercial, neighborhood right. Commercial. And then Toledo Blade and Price, but that's already widened there. So there's no commercial growth on Price Boulevard where we're talking about, except for Cranberry and Price neighborhood commercial.
But you have Travelway. You have Travelway.
Oh, absolutely. I thought you were talking about growth in commercial.
I look at commercial growth as access to
the other areas. Absolutely.
And right now, if you're getting off at Toledo Blade and you're turning on to Price Boulevard and you think you're going to get somewhere on trash day, forget it. If you're going at bus route time, forget it. I even feel bad for the ambulances that go down the road, because the truth of the matter is people are just pulling in, and I don't want to say front yards because it's not front yards. They're pulling in city owned property for a roadway, but they're pulling in people's grass to do it. That's the funny thing about Price Boulevard right now is that people think they own their grass all the way out to the street, even though their little red flags told them differently when they bought the house. But they've had it for so long, and they feel the need to feel good about that. They forget who owns the property.
That's right.
So it's a unique situation, but you've got fire, you've got police, you've got trash collection, you've got postal service, and I got to tell you, there's just having the postman in front of you can add on another 5 or 10 minutes just getting down Price Boulevard.
Yep.
So when you're talking about growth and traffic control, there's a lot of things that go into that. And according to our grid, most of the boulevards that are out there should be 4 lanes, and we're only talking about 1. and we've got many
Yep.
that are only 2 lanes.
There's, we've spent a lot of time talking about Price Boulevard, but I'm telling you, the city has a lot of other needs here.
Sure.
Our water control structures, they're not getting any younger. Our bridges are not getting any younger. We have the city water, city sewer neighborhood expansion that we're trying to still navigate. We're busting at the seams at the police department. We're busting at the seams here in City Hall. With all of this growth requires more and more staff to be able to keep up with the growth and service the residents of Northport. Solid waste, I mean, they're busting at the seams. We're wanting to do a transfer station out east so that way then it'll help us save some money. There's just so many needs, but there's just so much money. And we can't pull it out of thin air. We can't print it like the federal government. We have to have a balanced budget every single year, and we have to balance which needs need to be taken care of first.
So as a city commissioner, I'm going to ask you this because we're talking about it, and we're talking about it, sending it back to the citizens for vote. Debbie McDowell, commissioner hat, take it off for a second. As the citizen of Northport, are you voting for Price Boulevard to be widened with the bond money?
I don't know. You're asking me to speak as a citizen, and I'm here as a commissioner.
Well, as the commissioner, where do you stand?
I've made that clear. When we were talking about Price Boulevard, I did not like the idea of doing 5 lanes, 2 in each direction with 1 center lane. I think we could accomplish it with less road without having a runway down the middle of our city. But at the same time, 4 years ago was totally different than today. 4 years ago, we were at the time when we were talking about widening Price, we had 41 under construction. We had 75 under construction. So everybody was kind of using Price Boulevard to navigate those already existing construction lanes. That, in my opinion, exasperated the problem. When I go down Price Boulevard, when I am traveling at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, there's no traffic. When I travel down Price Boulevard at 7:30 in the morning, there's no traffic. When I travel down Price Boulevard at 7:20 in the morning or 7:15 in the morning, it's bumper to bumper. I come from Chicago. I have a unique perspective as to what traffic is and what I truly do. And that plays in my mind. Sitting through 2 stoplights at Salford, in my opinion, is not warrant widening of the road. Now, with that said, when you were mentioned about the first responders coming through and having a hard time getting through safely because Price Boulevard is bumper to bumper because of traffic, that definitely plays on my mind. We have a responsibility to make sure that our first responders can get from point A to point B safely and quickly as possible without causing other disruptions in the road traffic. So that's why I'm saying I don't know how I am going to vote as a citizen. I have already voted against Price Boulevard widening for a variety of reasons, some of which I just explained. But that was 3, 4, 5 years ago. Things have changed since then. We have more information available since then. Does it need to be done? Yeah, it does. Does it need to be 5 lanes? I'm kind of on the fence on that one. And I have always been on the fence on that one. So it's, this is where we have those differences. Going back to the differences, I think one way, you think another, they think another, this person thinks another, and we have to find that compromise. Am I going to win trying to change their mind to go from 5 lanes to 3? No, I am not that naive. I know it's not going to. It's going to. The road design has been approved by the majority of the commission. And that is what staff proceeded with. To start that process all over again and go back to the drawing board would be stupid. And I recognize that. So we have to move forward. And now it will go to the voters for the bond.
And I actually think that's if people listen to and not get misinformation about getting taxed. People hear tax and they freak out and they don't understand. They hear bond and they think they're going to pay for it. We kind of are as a city going to pay for it, but through surplus. Or surtax. I'm sorry, I said it again. I corrected myself that time.
I was just getting ready to correct you again, but I was.
I'm glad you didn't spit your drink everywhere. But that the whole thing is I just hope people understand that one, it's needed. There has to be something done there.
Absolutely.
3, 4, 5. I don't care.
Something needs to be done. And
something
Commission
needs to be done.
5 lanes. That's what we're moving forward with. 5 lanes.
So Vanessa said we need to go back to working with area governments to borrow their inspectors and such until they are caught up.
Yeah, the only problem is there's not that many inspectors and everybody is having the same constraints with labor shortages as the city of Northport. They're having the same things with growth as the city of Northport. So if we could borrow bodies, that would be fantastic. But at this point in time, there's some serious labor shortages going on.
Not out there, huh? So we've got another one. She says bond, trees, increase in home values, increase in water fees, increase in permit fees, increase in all will play a role, and it's going to be a huge issue.
I agree. I got nothing more.
You got nothing more than you agree.
That's one of the main reasons I voted against that tax increase in 2019, because we raised water rates. We raised all the taxes. We raised assessments. And I said, we can't do this all at once. We cannot do this all at once. And we're going through impact fees right now and looking at impact fees and increasing impact fees. We're looking at mobility fees and increasing mobility fees. You're talking about, we were talking before we started today, the interest rate going up, and that's going to slow down the housing and stuff. So we got to be careful we don't have a negative perfect storm again.
Well, and I'm hoping that we've learned something from that last negative perfect storm, that we're going to work.
But how can we can learn from it? That doesn't mean it doesn't get repeated, even though this is like a global thing. It's not just the city of Northport's being affected. I mean, the labor shortages are affecting every municipality.
They're real and they're out there. And
the cost of construction is affecting every municipality and county. Yep. Everything is affecting everybody. It's affecting your personal pocketbook. It's affecting my personal pocketbook. It's affecting the city. It's affecting the county. It's affecting the state. And I just don't have all the answers. So I try and stay in my lane.
I got to tell you, I think on a federal level, maybe I should even say this, on a global level, because everybody always talks about what happens in America. Well, America's global. It's a global economy. It's not an American economy anymore. It's a global economy. When somebody decides they're not going to do something, there's an effect. There's a cause and effect for everything.
That's right.
There's a cause and effect for local government on what we do. And, that's why I keep talking about the fact that there's 5 of you. So when you get 3 votes, there's 2 people that aren't happy, and sometimes you're on that side, sometimes you're not on that side. But I got to say that overall, I think caution right now is probably the best thing. And the fact that the bond money is out there, I hope as a city we realize what the offer is, and we grow up from the misinformation and trying to sabotage growth, because we have people in our town that want to sabotage growth, and quite frankly, they need to get out of the way. It's coming whether they want it to or not. And sometimes having a voice and respectfully, right. Sometimes when you have someone in your position where you want 3 lanes, they want 5, and you get 4, there is a win in there. because it does soften the blow of the aesthetics to the town. So there are some wins and losses that come with compromise, and use that word earlier. And I think, even with people who don't want growth, they need to understand they can throw their fits all they want. It's coming. And if they don't help kind of navigate that growth it may come. I call it a boomerang effect, because you can push us down all you want to, but sooner or later that boomerang effect is going to come back, and you're going to have things happen that you don't like at all. And so maybe compromise and professionalism is something we should talk about.
Yeah.
About being part of Northport.
Look at growth. John, you've lived here 30 years. I've lived here 30 years. There's people that have lived here longer than us, but we're the ones on the show today. Look at how Northport was 30 years ago, and look at how Northport is today. And if people think that Northport is not going to change in the next 30 years, they're mistaken. It is not. This city was intended to grow. This city is supposed to be built out at 250,000 people. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time for that to happen. And for people to think that it's going to stay the way it is right now, they're wrong. And I don't know how else to say that. 30 years ago, look at what we had, and look at where we are now. And even just 5 years ago, look at how it was 5 years ago. Most people have been here. I
think that would be a very interesting overlay presentation.
Yeah.
For a lot of people at a newcomers event, or even a Welland Park event, where you take the overlay of what Northport was when they got annexed in, and then overlay what it is today.
Yeah.
Well, there's a big change. There, I use the wrong word. Big's not big enough. It's huge. It's a massive,
monstrous change. Yes. It's a monstrous change, and it's a good monster. Look at what it's doing for our city. Look at what it's doing for our city. And it's not just the Welland Park area that's growing. I hate to tell people, it's not just Welland Park that's growing.
Not at all.
Northport as an entire city is growing. My gosh, I go down the street and I go, oh my, they cleared another lot. Oh my, look, this is going up. Oh, look, here's 2 houses going up here. It's everywhere you turn. It's happening. It's not just Welland Park.
And I'll say this because we only got a few minutes left, but the fact that we see all this growth, and we know we have a shortage of inspectors, and a
shortage of everything.
I know, and I could go into the tree ordinance, but we don't have enough time for me to do that. But we just added another layer of difficulty for our town, and we're going to fight our way through that. I think sometimes we kind of put growth in a stagmire a lot of times with some of the decisions we make. And we'll talk. I'm going to have you on my show again, I know for a fact. So I'm gonna leave it right there.
I'm probably not for 6 more months.
You're not banned. That was not me. That was a scheduling thing.
I know. I don't think I'm on for 6 more months unless I become an alternate. But anytime you'd like me to have,
I may call you on a Friday show and have you come on just because we have a good time.
Not a problem.
And you know what? It's all the commissioners have been really gracious about being on the show and about discussing different topics. And yes, sometimes you get hammered by people. I actually look at it as a good thing, because whether you answer their questions or not, at least they're participating. And there's no better environment that we can have as a city unless we encourage our citizens, Stephanie Gibson's, the Chuck English, John Cook, all of them.
We all have to just agree to disagree. We all have different perspectives, and we have got to start understanding that my perspective is different. Yours doesn't make yours right, and it doesn't make yours wrong any more than mine is right and mine is wrong. Different perspectives are paramount to making sure that everything is looked at.
Yep. Oh,
And we have to
100%.
respect these different perspectives.
Well,
We have to respect, agree to disagree. That's what it all boils down to. I don't have to agree with everything, and I don't expect everybody to agree with me.
All right, I've got no time left. And
I know you don't.
Keep it professional.
Absolutely.
Have a great day, Northport. You guys have a great time. Be safe on the way
John.
home and keep it under 80. Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate it.